In this session, I'm going to tell you how to make a checkpoint that, for example, if you die, you can revive from that checkpoint. Nothing is more frustrating that your player plays to a very great distance into the game and suddenly bleh, he dies. And then he has to start again. But we have to give this player an option so that they would revive from the last checkpoint. So here, let's make a script called checkpoint. The logic is that whenever that my player, for example, gets there, it saves the position of that. Okay? And if the player dies, and we say respawn, then the transform that position of the player will be equal to transform position of this. So now let's go here in the checkpoint. Let's say public transform checkpoint, for example, position, and we just say that if the player has entered to that, we say on trigger enter 2D, and we say if collision that game object that compare tag, if it is the player, then it has to save the checkpoint place in this. So I say checkpoint position, transform that position, is equal to transform that position, which is because we want to give this code to the checkpoint. And the checkpoint transform that position will equal to this, which later we want to give it to the player. So now we have the code and we want to give it to this checkpoint. But here it is for the finish line and it has this one, so I make another one, duplicate that, and I say checkpoint. You can make another picture, but I use the same thing. And for example, this should only goes to here, the finish point, only happen once when we want to finish the game. But the checkpoints, they can be lots of them. But usually there are, for example, 3 of them. It depends on how big is your level. For example, I put it here and here. You can add more. So I say checkpoint 2. And let's add the code checkpoint and also to this and remove the finish. Yes, it should have a box collider is trigger. And let's write another code that is for player spawning, player respawn. I just write the function and I say, okay, I have to have access to this code. Private player checkpoint. Then we can say private void respawn. As we're going to give this code to the player, so that will be transformed that position. It means that is for the player. It would be equal to, if I can make it public static, so I don't need to. This static variable is shared along all of the instances of this class. It means that every game object that has this class, they have the same value for that. So you don't need to individually make this variable for them, something like that. And you don't even need this. So you directly call this class, you say checkpoints dot, you have direct access to this dot position. Okay, and you use this code whenever that you want to use, to call that. For example, in-game menu, you can add another function and say, okay, when I press that button, it will be spawned. I just told you this so you can have a basic understanding how this system works. But it has some problem because static values remain across the scenes unless that you come out of the game. So be careful. If a player is in the middle of the scene, for example, it reaches here, and then he gets out of this level and enter, for example, level 2, he wouldn't start from, for example, here. He would suddenly start from here, um, because the player position is stored there. To prevent that, now that you've learned the code, let's make some changes. Don't make it a static, and also I move it to this so it actively updates that position. So for the respawn, I just say transform the position is equal to checkpoint dot position. Okay, and now go here and just say collision that game object that gets components, which is the player's respawn, and get this value. Is this public? Okay, this would be equal to transform, the transform of the checkpoints. And here you can also check for null because at the beginning of the game you don't have any checkpoint. So you say only if it is activated and you have collided to the checkpoint, and if the check and so the checkpoint would be not null, then do that. Otherwise, else say okay, the checkpoint has not been assigned. You can use that, or simply you can just bring it here where the player wants to start the game. So if the player dies before it gets there, for example in the middle, it will respawn there. And you can, if you don't want that the player sees that, you can go and make it, for example, into BG. But it still has its effect on the player. Something like that. So that is checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3. And the only thing is that, okay, I have to give this player respawn into the player prefab. Script and player respawning. We don't need to assign anything. I just made it public so that this can access that. Now let's go and check the game. This function is not called anywhere. Here in the canvas, I make a new panel. Panel, and I call it panel death when a player dies. And yeah, it takes whole the scene, so I cannot, for example, consume this potion when I'm dead. And you can make the transition to this, but it doesn't matter. Just the whole panel is this, unless that you resize that. No, it is this size, and let's go and give the exact same thing. Duplicate that and give it to this. Instead of continue, I can say restart the level. Restart. It means that it has to completely restart the level that it is in. And let me fix that here. Restart. Yes, maybe the player wants to go to the main menu or exit the game. But I add a button that is revive. It means that it would revive the player from the last checkpoint. But for example, you can have conditions for that. To revive the player, it has to consume 10 coins. Or you can add another button that, okay, instead of using the coin, it has to watch an ad. So you kind of monetize your game in this way. Um, and you know how to. Do you remember that for the potion, I said, okay, for the converting coin to potion, you converted that, the amount. For example, I think for every 10 coin, we had one potion. And you can do the same logic for this button. And you say, okay, for every 10 or 30 potion, 30, I'm sorry, coin, it can revive. Otherwise, it can't, and it says, okay, no, not enough coin, and it has to restart. Or you can make another currency like gem, something like that. It depends on your creativity. So that is here. Restart, revive. So let's go, and I don't want to make another code. Just give that to this. And here, I just add two more functions. I say restart, which has to, mm, you can make it asynchronously, and I can give that a slider. But I want that for simplicity. I just reload the current scene. So I delete that. So just scene manager, just load scene. But which scene? The scene that we are in. So I give it a name of the scene or the index of that. So I get scene manager that gets active scene that's build index. Get active scene. Why it's not working? Ah, build index. Okay, just reload the current scene that we are in. And also we have a public void revive player. Then we must have access to that and get this. So let's go there and say private player spawn. So player spawn. And in the awake or start function, awake is makes the game ready, and everything is done in that function, and then the game starts. So this before this start. The awake function is before this, but no problem. We can also play. And here I say, okay, player spawn this, find game object of type this. It's better that you use these things less if you want to that your game be more optimized. But okay, no problem, because it only happens once. Okay, player spawn dot, make sure that it is public. and say public respawn. So now let's go to our scene. Okay, this is the restart. Let me give all of them this code. For the restart, for that it is revive. It was main menu. What's that main menu? And it was exit. It's the game. And this is normally not active. I want that when the player dies, this is be activated. I think it was here. Player death. Um, we say serialized field private game object death panel. This panel that's set active true, or you can make that to be executed with some delay. So you can say private void active death panel. And here I say invoke this. For example, after 2 seconds, to F, which is 2 seconds that the player dies, and it shows a death animation, and then this scene is active. And okay, now we go to player code. Where was the player health? And we give this panel death. And I think everything is set. So let's go and play the game. And also I have to make that scene deactivated after I do, but it's no problem. Okay, now I just die here. And I say revive, and I am here. And if I say restart, I go here. But there's some problems. First, I want that the flame shows the animation of that. So I say private, something that we had for the finish. Let me see if you can find that. Because I don't want to do that again in the bonfire. What we do, we did. Oh, we just set the fire active. Okay, so we have this. Let me get that to checkpoint. And then let's say, okay, just activate that. Here, the fire is, and for this is this. This. It's better that you make one of them prefabs so you don't have to change them manually like this. Okay, now this is fixed. But now as a player dies, it just is dead. So we have to do several things when it is respawning. We have to say that it has to return to normal animation. So I go to the player health and make a new function called public void revive player Everything that is opposite is alive. False is alive. True. Oh, what is that? And I have to reset the animation. And we say anim.play idle. Go to player animation, animator, and close that. So it kind of forces that the death animation returns to idle. And make sure it is not looped. And also we want that the health bar be filled. So I say current health value is equal to max health value, and a slider that's value is current health. And you can do that for the mana as well. You can bring the mana code here and set that to this. But imagine we only want to do this. And another thing is, let's see what. Oh, I have to activate. You want to deactivate the death panel. So it is false. Okay. And also go to your in-game menu and you have to call that function again. Also, say private player health bar. Say player health. Go to find game up. Of type. And then I say find game object of type. Okay, player health. Now I say player health that's revive player. So let's go there. And I say revive and it plays this animation and everything is filled. Also when I die I want that it shows that it is empty. Now I want to restart. Okay, it is restart, no problem. But for the death, when it is dead, the current value is nothing. It is 0 and 0. So it is empty. I revive, everything is working perfectly fine. And how about I go to next checkbox? Oh, damn. Okay. So here, and I go, okay, I'm coming with you. So let me revive. And now I revive from this place. But it is very bad that he was there. I want to make sure that first, okay, they don't fall down. And also, if they fall down, they die.